Hello, and thanks for joining us on the podcast that discusses all things gaming. Coming to you from the home of Gen Con and the gaming capital of the world, this is The Established Facts.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Established Facts. Today on The Established Facts, we are going to be discussing LARPing. So we are going to let you get introduced to the panel here. We're going to start on my left.
This is Big Don.
This is Dr. Deb.
This is Josh.
And live via satellite back in Vermont, we have a Derek that's not responding.
He doesn't like us.
Hey guys, this is Derek.
He's alive!
And joining us as our resident host for LARPing, we have a guy that is running a local LARP here in Indianapolis. We'll let him introduce himself.
John Gibbons.
John Gibbons, everybody. You got it all, Josh?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get some stuff worked out, that's all.
All right.
Aren't we all?
Okay, so the versus topic that we are going to discuss in this episode, like I made mention, it's going to be about LARPing. So our versus topic is going to be a combat-oriented LARP versus a diplomatic-oriented LARP. Obviously, the two terms are pretty self-evident. One being very physical in nature, foam weapons, whole nine yards. The other being very social in nature, kind of a game of wits. So we're going to go around the panel here and let the podcasters tell you whether they would rather participate in a combat-oriented LARP or a diplomatic-oriented LARP. Donald.
Combat.
Diplomatic.
I'm going to say combat.
I'm going to say diplomatic.
I like them both, but I prefer the diplomatic one.
And I would have to say diplomatic as well. So, usually I pick on Josh and make him start. However, I think we just got lost in the forest and some bird just landed on our
I
shoulder.
think it was my phone telling me I had an email. Sorry.
Okay.
Holy cow.
All right.
Okay.
Welcome to the digital age.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Donald.
Well, my phone sits
With
right next to the mic,
bluebirds
so-
in my head. Oh, okay.
I see.
Ooh.
Donald. You said combat.
I did.
Tell us why.
Well, as we were discussing just a little bit before the show started, I have
Oh, God.
a very
thank you.
I have a very long history of doing Renaissance and French and Indian War and Revolutionary War and War of 1812 reenacting. And as anyone who has ever gone to a Ren Fair or any one of those other kind of events, or even a Civil War reenactment, the one thing that draws a large majority, probably I would venture to say probably 90% of the crowd is going to be your battles, your jousts. When you've got the British and you've got the French out there and they're shooting each other and you've got people falling in kilts trying to show everyone what they're not wearing.
Whoa.
Very visual, Deb. Thank you.
So really just the combat kind of stuff is what draws me and usually what draws the largest crowd. So that's, in a nutshell, that's really why I shoot for the combat-oriented stuff a lot heavier than just diplomatic stuff.
It's a social excuse?
Yes.
Oh.
To hit people.
Yeah.
Now that just makes it socially acceptable.
That's right.
In that situation.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, I mean, okay. If you've ever seen the movie Role Models,
Love that movie.
the best part of that movie is when they're all out playing Lair. Which, if you have not seen Role Models, you need to. Just don't watch it with kids around.
No.
It's a rated R movie. But
I am glad to say that I would gladly join Kiss My Anthea. I don't know about anybody else.
yeah, So there's just something about the idea of being able to develop a character, and then most of those kind of games anyway are themed around some sort of like medieval combat or fantasy oriented combat and stuff. So yeah.
Derek, I know that you said diplomatic. Why is it that style of LARP is drawn to you?
First of all, I think I'd feel a little bit silly hitting people with foam swords and stuff like that.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, I would. The other thing is that a lot of tabletop RPG is combat oriented, and so having something that's nearly pure story driven is very enticing for me. And I think it also has to deal with the fact that that's what I grew up on. It's Vampire the Masquerade. LARPing is what I started.
That's what you cut your teeth on?
RPG on, yeah. Thank you, Don. Waka waka. So yeah, those are the reasons why I would do that. Why I prefer diplomatic.
Because you don't want to look like a goofball.
Hitting people with a foam sword, yeah.
Oh, but you're okay with looking like a goofball in any other manner?
Oh, totally.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying, a game master at a con who had no problem wearing a kilt and had made up his own armor based off UFS cards. I
UFS,
guess.
Universal Fighting System. Thank you,
goodness.
Josh.
I do what I can.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I'm just going to totally take over here and try and defend the combat side again. Since Mike's taking care of the baby, so I'm totally okay with just trying to take over right now.
Is it true we have no host?
No, he's
right there, but he just ran off screen, which we can actually say right now. But for me,
yes.
I'm going to be completely honest with you that the layer from that makes me want to do that. I never make room in my schedule when the cons come around to do it, and I will say that we know somebody, Dustin at church actually, is involved with the SCA. They're the ones that are like more metallic and crazy. He actually gets heavily involved with them as well. But our buddy Quad, I believe, is involved in another LARP as well that has a little bit of elements of both in it.
I have a friend named Brent who also does Daga here.
Okay, which is
it is foam. I'm trying to remember what the boffer weapon. It's boffer weapon combat, but it's not sissy boffer weapon combat. It's like they club the crud out of each other. But there's less character develop. There you play a character, but there's less like role play, and it's way more combat. So it's a combat-oriented roleplay for the hack and slash fan versus the roleplay fan. So.
Well, and the other side of it for me, I'm a very visual person. I've really been challenged with role-playing to expand my imagination as it may be, and I love it because it brings out the creative side of me that, as an engineer, you don't always get to utilize. More often, you utilize a more logical approach to things, but I think I would love to be involved in maybe a more combat-oriented LARP, just because I think I could easily get into that, get enveloped by those surroundings as it may be.
So it's like, I hit you, I hit you, I hit you, I hit you.
Exactly.
Sure. Did you really have to do the swinging thing too? Hold on.
We're live on video. I figured I'd do something more dynamic than sit here and look at the camera.
All right, well, very visual, Derek. There, now I've said it twice. Do you feel better?
I feel so much more complete.
Oh.
Hey, Josh.
Oh, our host is back.
You've been relieved of your duties.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey, I'm here for you, Derek.
As often as he's tried to take it from you, you're going to give him credit for that?
Okay, I honestly think that he's going to hand the mic to Brooklyn, and she's going to be the host.
She'll probably do way better than me.
I don't know. She did live reporting for us at Gen Con.
Yes, she did.
So
Can't deny it.
Mr. Givens, I know at least with my experience with you, you do a lot of the diplomatic versions of LARPing. What is it about that style that just kind of you said you have interest in both, but what is it about the diplomatic side that just keeps drawing you back to do it and dealing with crazy people in the middle of the night?
I don't know, to be honest. I started out back in, 96 with Gary Mudd, and that was my first LARP I went to was Vampire the Masquerade. And I really liked the social dynamic of the game, not just outside, between players, but between the characters. Oh, I can backstab him while I'm getting favor with this guy. And I like that a little better, but I think had I actually gone to, say, an SCA or some other Boffer LARP or something like that, I probably would be just as into it as I am into Vampire and Werewolf.
Fair enough. Kind of the first love kind of thing?
Yeah.
That was Derek's excuse, too.
Was it? He cut his teeth?
Yeah.
Is that what I heard? Yeah, we'll revisit.
Did not need to be repeated.
Yes, it did.
I'm the host. I repeat what I want. Anyway, I have always been personally interested in the diplomatic side of LARPing, mainly because I get very enveloped in story and very enveloped with character development. And to me, much like Don has stated in the combat-oriented LARPs, you're playing a character, but the envelopment and the development is all based around these large battles and things like that. Sure, you can take the time on your own to develop a character and the story and stuff like that, but as we mentioned in the last show, I think that in the times that I have LARPed, I found that you connect to your character that you have built much faster in kind of a deeper realm, because I made mention that it's literally you are driving that character. If you can't, if you're not witty enough to make a response to a witty prince that's sniping at you, then your character obviously isn't going to be witty enough to do that. Sure, you can have traits that say you're witty, but it's all social driven. If you can't say it and you can't do it, well, it's just probably not going to happen. There's not a whole mechanic there to say, hey, I'm going to roll my wits and make him look retarded. If you, like I said, if you can't do it, it just doesn't happen. And that whole aspect just kind of, it's like a mental challenge every time you go and play. It just challenges you mentally every time.
Physical challenge.
Right? Test your might.
I gotta reset my camera. It froze up on me.
Okay. What do we gonna ask Deb now, or we just wait on him?
There.
Okay, we can wait. It's cool.
He's just resetting his camera. You can still hear us.
I know.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Deb,
I can hear you. I can see you. I just
in your limited experience with LARPing, why do you think that a diplomatic LARP would be more your stance than a combat-oriented LARP? I mean, sure, I think it would be hilarious watching you run around with a great sword, boffer weapon.
I would giggle so much.
And I agree that the picture is really one of just absolutely ridiculous proportions. So, yeah. The reason I think I would enjoy a diplomatic LARP, you all would probably enjoy seeing me in a combat LARP run around, screaming like a banshee and flailing weapons. Yeah, see. But me, myself, and I.
Green.
All three of you?
Yes, all three of us. We are, Deb. If you go back to... We are the Borg, exactly. Resistance is futile.
I did not know my wife was assimilated.
Yes. Well, I've been watching a lot of Star Trek The Next Generation lately, so anywho. If you listen back to one of our previous episodes, hint, hint, and I discuss how I really enjoy puzzle solving and figuring out the mystery. And I honestly think that would lap over into LARP, because I think that just going around and beating the crap out of people might be fun the first hour, and then I'm going to be really, really bored.
Tell me the same thing after a long night on the shift. I'm just saying.
Well, that's true. But then again, that may not be all fun and games at that point. That may be me really just, I'm going to beat the crap out of somebody.
You mean you might get arrested in a socially acceptable fighting situation?
Yes, exactly. That would be awesome and hilarious and definitely worth commenting on a future episode. But I think if I want to beat crap up, honestly, I go into Eve and I get my great big Abaddon out and I go and I blow shit up. You're going to have to beat that.
Thanks.
Welcome. And then when I want to really play and enjoy myself in a game, I will go into one where the story is complicated, where I have to puzzle solve, where I have to really think about what my character's doing. And when I'm working with the other characters, okay, what should we do next? What's really going on here? This is what he's saying, but I don't think that's really what's going on. I like that. That keeps me interested and involved.
Well, it's also been my experience just from observing combat-oriented role-play, combat-oriented LARPing and stuff like that. Yes, there's heavy drinking involved. But no, when you're actually playing in a role-play game, it seems like there is also
heavy drinking involved.
some kind of a diplomatic side of it where you may have. I'm using the example of Lair again.
That's fine.
From role models because that's the first thing I think of every time I think
that
of
movie's
this.
been out long enough that this is no longer spoilers.
Right.
So,
well, I'm not spoiling any part of the movie, but a large part of what that game, which is a made-up game that they actually made up specifically for that movie, but a large part of what that game involves is diplomacy between kingdoms. You have different people. You have one central king from a country that rules over all of the other countries as well as its own, and then you have individual groups that are considered like kingdoms that fall under the rule of that head ruler. And so in that sense, there is a lot of diplomacy that still goes on in a combat-oriented role-play game. Probably not as much with games like Dagahir and things like that. I'm not 100% sure. But in games where you are doing heavy diplomacy, I have noticed that there is very little, if absolutely no, physical confrontation in the game. So you don't walk around with padded weapons. You don't walk around with Nerf guns pretending like they're
well, at least there's not supposed to be.
and stuff like that, right? But whereas on the other side, on the flip side, with the combat oriented, there is some diplomacy involved with the combat side as well. So it's just an observation I was making.
He likes to make those.
It's all good.
Well, and that's true too. I mean, when it comes to a combat style, either LARP or even a tabletop, you'll have the guy that I don't want to fight this group of people, but I might fare better against them. So you might strike a deal with the guys you don't want to fight against and make your enemy their enemy.
Right.
My enemy's enemy is my friend.
Another good example of that is if you have Netflix, there's it's a documentary movie. It's called Dark On, and it's a real game that they play. I want to say it's on the East Coast, but I could be wrong. I don't really remember. But it's called Dark On. It's on Netflix. You can stick it in your instant feed and watch it in your instant queue and stuff like that. But it is a documentary about people who play in a game called Dark On, which is a combat-oriented role-play game, and all of the diplomatic. It talks about you actually get a chance to meet the actual characters and the actual people that play in the game, and you get a chance to see a lot of the behind-the-scenes gameplay that goes on between people when they're not actually on the battlefield. You've got people calling other people who are leaders of other nations and other armies, trying to make connections and stuff like that. And it's actually really fun. It's a fun movie, and what I think is the most fun about it is it totally makes fun of the gamer genre. And it's a documentary about gamers, and you watch it, and I just laughed at most of the people that were on there because they take it way too seriously. So,
well, that's like all gamers.
Yeah,
all gamers
true.
have whatever they participate in. They take it way seriously. Isn't that right, Derek?
Oh yeah, nod your head because they can hear that.
Yeah, yeah, of course they can. Yeah, no, I don't take role playing too seriously. I just spend half of my life on it or with it. So,
and the other half is sleeping, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
He gets paid for that.
Yeah, I've had some gamers that come to my game and they just take it way too seriously at times. I mean, like the game is everything to them.
Yeah.
That's part of what I found to be difficult about the Masquerade, especially the more organized ones, is that they take it's like almost nearly like a religion to them. It's scary.
Yeah. Well, like I had one guy, he had metagamed a bit, using information that he as a player had gained that his character wouldn't have known, and used that knowledge as if his character had the knowledge. And I talked to him about it and sanctioned him for it, and pretty much called him a metagamer, and he got all kinds of irate, upset, and cried about it. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
That.
Yeah. And I'm like, to break down into tears because you cheated and I called you out for it, that's a bit too involved.
So now we're going to move out of our versus topic into our discussion. It's going to be very general. We're just going to spend the next few minutes talking about LARP and what it is, some mechanics, the different way that people, the different mechanics involved. Some use playing cards, some use paper, rock, scissors. There are other mechanics involved. So we're just going to kind of let John, our resident expert in LARPing, just kind of start off and just kind of give a brief background of his involvement with LARP, what he's doing now with LARP, and kind of what his game is doing, and kind of just describe in general how the whole process of LARPing works. John?
Well, the LARPing, I started in LARPing in 1996, like I said earlier, with Gary Mudd. He had already been LARPing for a number of years prior to that. Some groups had started shortly after Vampire the Masquerade came out in, 91, 92. A lot of people made their own house rules and such. But anyway, they used the paper, rock, scissors method of determining success and failure. It's like if I'm going to punch you, and then instead of actually just hauling off and punching you, we go, okay, we use a descriptive, I'm brutally punching you, and you're quick enough to dodge, or what have you, and then we throw rock, paper, scissors until someone wins. Generally, it's just the one time, and then there's other complications that can make it where you throw multiple times. But I've also seen in Requiem setting, which is the newer vampire setting, where they use the cards. So you just add two numbers, draw a card, add that, and subtract stuff, and a bunch of math that I never was very good at.
Yay, algebra.
Yeah, almost. And then I've just seen, I've been to some games where they just actually just role play it out, like it's designed to where, like let's say I was going to get in a combat with Mike, and I'd go, hey, I'm going to punch you, and you say, well, I'm going to dodge out of the way, and we work out the entire scene beforehand, and then act it out, with fake swings and stuff, like as if we were putting on a show at a theater. That I prefer to any of it. I hate RPS. I don't care much for doing math and drawing cards either. But at the same time, if people don't want to come to a consensus on how they feel something should be resolved, then you have to break down into RPS. But anyway, I kind of detracted there. I've been playing since 96. I started storytelling in 2001. Ran a game for about 4.5 years until it finally died because my schedule of work changed and so forth. And then I started the current game up just over a year ago in August of last year. So we've been going for just over a year now. And we started out with about 15 people. Now we're up to about 40. So just had a article in the Indy Star just prior to Gen Con. That helped to get us a boost. Had our game at Gen Con that didn't go quite as well as I had hoped. But, competing against a dozen other LARPs at the same time is just not feasible for anyone, really. But, I don't know.
So why don't you give us a kind of a short background on your game that you're running now? It's based in Indianapolis, right?
Yeah.
So just kind of give us, if you were a third party person looking at it, what's the difference between the Indianapolis that is they know and love and live in, and the Indianapolis that runs in your LARP? What's the difference in the worlds?
Well, in the Vampire the Masquerade game, the setting is the world of darkness. So everything's supposed to be a darker reflection of the real world, generally speaking. Of course, storytellers are free to add their own cities and what have you else, but we decided to stick with Indianapolis. I decided to take the areas of town that aren't quite the best areas of town and make them worse.
So Community East Hospital. Got it.
Yeah, kind of.
Probably owned by a vampire.
Probably. Yeah. But, like, for example, in my setting, there's, much like in the actual city, there's a large portion of the east side and a large portion of the west side that are kind of run down. And that's actually because it's the older parts of the city, and they're just not
kept up as much, and they don't have the money people living there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I've taken those existing areas, and I've decided, okay, these are going to be the slums. These are now to the point of, you go through the east side now, and let's say there's 20 abandoned homes in the entire east side. Well, now there's in my setting, there's 200. There's rioting and looting, and cops won't go there, and it's really horrible. Then you get the north side, which in the real world is kind of the well-to-do neighborhood, Carmel, and Fishers, and Castleton. And I took that and I made it like it's a large gated community with its own police force, and the super rich live there. So now you've just got the dynamic of super rich and super poor, and no middle class. So, and I think that helps add to the feel, because you go into it and you can go, okay, I can either take this poor part of town and really just rule it and stomp over it because I'm a vampire that's lived for hundreds of years and amassed all this wealth. Or I can move into the rich sector and try to fight with these other rich people for control over it. But there's not a whole lot of changes. I mean, I try to make it a little more dark with the things that are run into. But I've pretty much just kept everything how it is, for the most part.
Do you have werewolves in your...
Yes, I do currently have a few werewolves, but I made them using the rules set forth in the back of the Laws of the Night, because they're an antagonist class. So I just used the vampire settings rules for antagonists to make them, but I got players that generally play werewolf. Derek's motioning something.
Okay, so random trivia knowledge. Seeing as how, Justin Bieber was apparently 2 in 1996. So there you go. Congratulations on your random trivia fact for today.
I just wanted to put, for all of our tween listeners, I just wanted to put in perspective how old John Givens actually is.
Wow, Don, you're a horrible person.
Wow, Don. How old are you, Don?
Yeah, how old are you, Don?
28.
Yeah.
Damn it, I'm still older than you.
Actually, I don't know. Is he older than me?
I'm 35.
Okay, you're older than me.
You're the oldest person. I am younger by a year.
Darn it.
Sorry, 2 months.
2 months.
As a matter of
good.
fact, I'm the second youngest in this podcast right now.
Yes, he is. And my husband is the baby.
Yeah.
Well, next to Brooklyn, but
next to the actual baby.
Next to the actual baby.
Nice.
I don't know. That could be debated.
Well, depending
She's got
on
an
the
old
day.
soul. She does.
She does.
I'll remember that, Derek. I'll
Okay.
remember that.
I'm sure you will.
All right. Now that I've totally successfully derailed what we were doing.
That's
We'll
fair.
just kick you later, Don.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, so you were trying to
I
explain.
know, Don, you have Biebermania.
You were trying to explain. Is it like east versus west, north versus south? I didn't quite understand where the battle lines were being drawn there by extreme separation.
That's a good question. Actually, there's no real east versus west, or north versus south, or anything like that. So much as the vampires are split up into different factions called clans, and then it basically becomes this clan versus this clan. And there's, in the setting as a whole, there's 13. In my game, there's only 7, 8, 9 of them. So we use 9 of the 14 clans. So out of those 9 clans, you'll get some groups that will come together and work for a common goal, and other groups, like the Venturi, that think they're high and mighty and lord over everyone else, like Mike.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
The sad
You're
thing
right,
is a good portion of us just started looking at Mike when you started explaining Ventru.
Yeah. Well, his character he started out in my game was a Venturi, so.
And I'm the host of the show.
Yes.
That's right.
Hey, but you got some competition in the La Sombra. They like to think that they're the bosses, too. So,
Yeah, but the real bosses are the Malkies.
Yeah, tell me about it. Especially Derek Lawson. He plays a Malkavian that's definitely a Malkavian by far.
Sweet.
He is one of the best Malkavian players I've ever seen.
All right.
And
Are you New World of Darkness or Old World?
we're Old World of Darkness. Thankfully, because I hate New World of Darkness. Yes, that book there, Derek.
Okay, so
Laws of the Night.
I've heard of Ventru, I've heard of Malkavian, but I think I'm going to have to ask him to explain what in the world he's talking about.
Okay. Vampires are separated into what's called clans. Each clan hails from... Basically, it's like a bloodline. They have things in common through the blood. So all Bruja are the same. They have different names. You got the Bruja, the Gangrel, Malkavians. I'll explain what all of them are here in a second. Toreador, Tremere, Ventru, Nosferatu, Giovanni, and Caitiff are currently the ones I have mostly in my game. I got La Sombra. And each of those different clans have basically their own little specialty. They're very, at least if you go by the stereotype. The Bruja are your rebel rousers, generally, or philosophers. You run into one of two things. You either run into the guy that's got the celerity and potence and will beat the shit out of you, pardon my language, will beat the crap out of you, or you will have the Bruja that's the philosopher, so they'll have more presence, and they read and are educated. But both, whether they're philosophers or beatsticks, are going to have the horrible temper. Got the Gangrel. They have Wanderlust that hits them. They're very animalistic. They like to roam. Malkavians are just crazy. Yeah, they're nuts. They take crazy by the cake. But it's not just like
Goofy crazy? It's dark crazy.
Exactly. Like the
how
Joker in The Dark Knight, for example.
Okay, so it's Ledger crazy, not Nicholson crazy.
Correct.
Yeah. It's Joker in The Dark Knight. It's Hannibal Lecter. It's evil crazy, not, "Ooh, I'm going to run around in my teddy bear underwear," or whatever.
No.
That would be hilarious, though.
Yeah, that would be hilarious.
You want to do a
Depending on who it was.
underwear?
No.
That is not a good idea.
No.
The Malkavian that I played would dismember people and put them back together as dolls.
Oh,
So.
wow.
That sounds disturbing side.
I think
Yeah.
that we just totally blew our G whatever rating out of the water with that one.
No.
Yes.
No.
that
Was that it?
Still PG.
that was getting blown out of the water.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, I have to make a quick
Damn
note.
soundboard.
Anyone who's ever played the game Galcon,
Yes.
that is exactly what that is. Galcon's a touch-based game where you take over planets with little spaceships and stuff, and everything you hear in it, like the lasers are pew 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 pew. You literally hear the creator doing that,
Yes.
and when things explode, they go. That's exactly what you hear. So, sorry, tangent. Anyways,
It's kind of like the Asteroids game.
Yes.
It's a lot like that.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot, except you attack other ships and planets rather than asteroids.
Yeah.
So,
But no, Malkavians are nuts. They're psychopathic. They're sociopaths. They're the crazy underbelly of society. Then you got the Nosferatu. They are hideously ugly, but they're usually very good at gathering information. Anytime you need to know something, that's who you go to. The Nos are bound to know it.
is it because they're threatening, or
I don't know. It never really explains. I think it's because they're sneaky, because they have a power called Obfuscate that allows them to hide right in plain sight. People ignore the fact that they're standing there. Then they combine that with their ability to talk to and control animals, so they can make a rat walk into a building or into a room, listen in on a conversation, come back and tell him what happened.
Wow.
Now, if the players would actually do that with their Nosferatu characters, we'd be set. So,
I want to play a Nosferatu. I'll remember.
they're a very neat clan, at least in the concept of them, but how they end up being played, just people want to go, oh, I got information network, so give me my rumors. It's like, no, why don't you try telling me what your information network's doing to get the information?
Yeah. That's some of the whole point.
So,
get creative. Come up with something crazy. And
Exactly. I've encouraged people to get creative with the things they do between games.
yeah.
It's difficult to play Nos because of their social problems.
Yeah.
It's tough to integrate in the group.
Yeah, they're hideously ugly. Take the ugliest person you've ever seen and multiply that by at least 100. And even then, I don't know that it quite hits it.
well,
No.
You look at the movie Nosferatu, the old silent film that first kind of introduced people to vampires.
Dracula in this.
That is a great way to. That's Nosferatu. Don't look much different than that. They were
Right.
not pretty. So
Even to the calmest extent is if you've seen Kindred the Embraced, Daedalus, the Nosferatu that's in there, he is the prettiest that you'll ever see. Because his only ugliness was that he has a bald head and these big floppy earlobes. So, wow, my camera lags really bad. Anyway.
the audio's great, though. We're good.
Good. That's what counts.
That's right.
But anyway, then you have the Toreador, which is
Pretty
actually,
boys.
Yes, but oddly enough, the word is Spanish for bullfighter.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure.
Yes, it is.
So,
but anyway,
Tito Santana, the old wrestler.
yes. But no, the Toreador are stricken by works of art. They see a work of art or a magnificent performance, whether it's music or acting or dancing and what have you, and they're enthralled by it, and they just want to sit there and watch it until it's done. They also like to create these works of art too. So they're the artists of society, the guitar players and drummers, the bard, exactly, to put it in more of a D&D term. They're the bards of the system. Then you have the Tremere. I hate the Tremere. They're the wizards.
Yeah.
They have a power called thaumaturgy, which means magic of the gods. And their thaumaturgy, has... I counted the paths the other day. Each path is its own 5-level power. And they have 32 paths, so it's like having 34 disciplines available that you can learn without a teacher. It's crazy. Everyone else gets 3, they get the equal of 34. It's dumb.
Yeah, their power level is just really off the chart.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got what other clans we have left?
Ventru, Giovanni, and Caitiff were the only other 3 I was going to touch on.
The Ventru are important. They're like the aristocrats.
Yeah, the self-proclaimed kings of Kindred Society. The Giovanni, are a little easier to describe. They're most people equate them to the Mafia, but they're a little more than that. They also have necromancy. They play with dead people and do other things that I will not mention on this podcast.
The
with
dead playing with the dead.
Yes.
Okay.
They also are all kinds of other sick that, I won't go into. And then there's the Caitiff. The Caitiff have no clan to call their own. They have no inherent weakness or disadvantage, or any advantage or disadvantage. So they're the outcasts. Nobody likes them because they have no bloodline to call their own. So.
Okay, so I see the importance of bloodlines in this particular thing, but I think going back more to a kind of pulling back a little bit on the LARP versus role playing. You choose a clan, you come up with a character concept, you define the abilities and so forth, very similar to every other role playing game.
Right.
Correct.
And so far, the big differences I've heard are obviously in play mechanics. So, aside from play mechanics, what are some big differences that kind of stand out with either one of you? Because I know, Derek, you've had experience playing as well. Well, as a matter of fact, let's start with Derek here. What are some differences that kind of stand out between that and tabletop role playing? We'll say in particular, because I also want to come back and I've noticed that there's a lot of comparisons that can actually be made to video game role playing games. Surprisingly, from what I've heard as well. So.
It's a lot more player-driven rather than GM-driven. Players will typically go off on their own and have conversations with other players and not have any real input from the storyteller until like a major event needs to happen, something has to blow up, or an invasion has to happen, or so forth. There's also the aspect of it tends to be more acting than on the tabletop, where you perform your actions rather than describe them. So you're standing and walking and talking and going all around the area rather than being very stationary, like around a table.
So that's the aspect. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So that's the aspect that's a little more like Fiasco, in that you're actually doing what you're saying, because you can play Fiasco of, well, I'm going to do this, and you just describe what you do. But as we played, it's a whole lot more fun if you actually speak it and do it to the best extent that you can.
True, but I mean, you're stuck to a table with dice or other mechanical devices. Fiasco is a good example of where you could actually get up and act, because you don't have a lot that you have to roll or draw cards or anything like that.
Okay.
But for example, when I was playing in my LARP at Purdue University, they had we basically took over the bottom floor and the one of the basement tunnels of the, I believe it was the tech building. Mm-hmm. We were all throughout that building. We were upstairs, we were downstairs, we were in the tunnels. We moved around a lot, so we had little cubby holes where we could plot against other player characters, NPCs, that sort of thing. That's what really separates a LARP from a traditional tabletop, is that you can maneuver and you can do individual things without worrying about letting a storyteller know everything that's going on.
Is that how all storytellers do it? Are they comfortable with letting people sort of run and hide in various corners? And because I could see that could possibly potentially be a problem, because if you've got some real plotters and schemers and, you know, you're not sure what they're going to come up with, and they sit over there in the corner, they may totally blow up the story. I mean, is that the point of a LARP? Or do you eventually have to put leashes on them and say, you know, we're all going toward one story here? I mean, how does the storyteller handle that?
there are a couple of Gen Con LARPs that I was involved with, so I do have a couple of different perspectives on that. And for the most part, they let the players roam free, and unless it's something major, the storyteller can basically let the players do what they want to do. Am I correct on that, John?
Pretty much. The only thing I usually ever ask in my players is just to, at least when they go off and have their private meeting or they're going to do something, just give me some info. Hey, I cast a ritual on these knives and I gave them to so-and-so. That way, later when that person comes to me and goes, yeah, I got these knives from this character and I'm going to find out if anything's wrong with them, then I've got info to go on. So,
and that makes sense. That seems completely reasonable.
Well, I got one final thing I want to... This is kind of a little out of left field, but a lot of the stuff that I've heard here, and we're coming up on our about a 50-minute mark, so I'm gonna present this question here that, from what I'm hearing, a lot of LARP, and like many other role-playing games, is a decision-making process, and it's that collaborative storytelling that we keep hearing about, and but you're doing it more in a face-to-face. There are certain mechanics in place that, okay, I'm going to do this, and whether or not Josh, can actually do it, it's still going to go into play. I made mention earlier that I had a feeling that they're trying to implement many of the similar things in video games today, especially your Mass Effects, the stuff that BioWare's doing, and the stuff that Bethesda's doing. They're trying to implement a lot of these concepts that you're going to run off in tangents, and the decisions you make are going to affect the world. And instead of it being a mechanic like a D20 roll or a card toss or a rock, paper, scissors type thing, it's you make a decision and you push some buttons. But ultimately, are you seeing that? Would you say you're seeing that in video game role-playing games? I don't know how much experience you have there, John. I know that Derek has said he's lost many hours of his life into Skyrim. But anybody can kind of throw in. I know I'm seeing it, but I want to see how crazy I am here.
My only real experience with the MMOs and stuff has been World of Warcraft, and that's a very good example. To be honest, they've kind of neutered that game. But I have seen that game and games like it have an effect on how people play their characters in the LARP. For example, I've had a number of players that will run around willy-nilly and do stuff, and then you smack them with consequences for their actions for whatever they've done, and they're like, oh my god. So,
Derek?
I haven't really seen that a whole lot. I really don't have a whole lot to say, Josh, on this.
Okay. Don?
Well, right off the bat, I can think of a few different video games where your actions in the early part of the story can affect the game later on, or even like rewards you get at the end of each stage. Army of Two, the sequel, I cannot remember what it's called, but basically it's Army of Two 2. There are...
I think the first one was Army of One, Don.
No, it's Army of Two.
It's Army of Two.
It was Army of Two?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the second one's called Army of Two something, like there's a subtitle, I just don't remember what it is. But in Army of Two, there are different scenarios at each stage where you have a choice you can make, and based on the choice that you make, things unlock and you get a reward one way or another. Like, I can even remember there's this one mission where you're in a zoo trying to save this person, and you get to the very end of the stage, or what you think is the end of the stage. It's really like the middle. And the guy that you're after, he is standing in front of this cage with a white tiger, and he tells you that it's a very rare animal, and you have a choice. You can either let it free, or you can shoot it and kill it. And there are consequences to either of those actions, but I've obviously played both sides of that, so it's kind of fun. But games like Mass Effect, pretty much anything that...
BioWare.
Thank you. I almost said BioShock. anything that BioWare makes has a lot of those intricacies woven into their games. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I've not gotten to play it yet, but I believe they have an aspect of that in Knights of the Old Republic for the MMO that.
Oh, you mean the Old Republic?
Or is that what it's called?
Yes.
The Old Republic. Sorry, Knights of the Old Republic.
I think they're going to have something with that with Goblin Works as well.
Yeah,
Pathfinder system. Yeah.
I think that's a really fun aspect. Kind of going back to what John Givens said, where there are, if you don't have a consequence, and even this goes back to conversations we've had with Tracy Hickman and other people. If you don't have consequences to your actions, then there is limited story building from those things, because it seems like a lot of times the consequences of your actions are what help boost and promote story building and character building, and if you are constantly getting away with whatever you want, then the depth of your character is always just whatever's on the surface. So.
Okay, well, and Deb, I know you haven't really gotten heavily into the new generation of gaming, as it may be, because you love your classic games, which there's nothing wrong with that. But have you seen it, even just watching me play, for an example?
I have seen it. I'm not sure how successful it is at this point, only because there's always going to be a limit to what a video game on a disc or cartridge or whatever it is can respond to. The options when you play LARP, or even when you do tabletop role play, are so endless that I think they're trying. I definitely think they're trying, and they realize that needs to be an aspect to keep players interested in the video game arena. But to me, it's still not the same, and I think that's one reason why I still have not. Maybe that's the reason why I'm not tremendously enchanted by those kind of games, because I sit here and I think about all the things that I would have chosen. It gives me 5 choices of responses to this chick, and I wasn't going to pick any of them. My comment was something totally different, and I can't pick it because it's not there. And so the freedom of being able to have that, I guess I'm a little too independent. I want to do what I want to do. And in that way, maybe LARP might be something fun to do, because as opposed to I'm stuck with a canned answer in a video game, or I'm not trying to say stuck, and maybe that's the word. It's not really true, but you're limited in your options. To me, it's always going to be more. It will never be as fun in a video game as it will be to actually role play it out.
Well, they can only. The thing about video games too is even if they give you 3 or 4 different choices to go down, and there's a different story path for each choice, and the game is it has the best role playing aspects of the depth of the story and stuff like that. The thing is, it's always going to be a railroad.
Right.
If you choose this way, it's always going to end this
always
way.
End
or if
at
you choose
somewhere,
this way,
it will end.
Right. And even if choices cross back and forth, you play the game 3 or 4 times and you have every storyline, every possibility laid out there. Whereas with a tabletop role playing game, with a live action role playing game, there are so many different possibilities because you're dealing with 2 or more live humans that are being affected by whatever your decision are, you and whomever else you are affecting. And obviously, computers don't think like humans. They don't think emotionally. They think rationally. And so, you may have a situation where you choose one way and somebody gets really, really mad about the decision that you made, and it turns the story into a completely different direction that nobody expected.
Well, the last episode, our versus topic was putting tabletop versus LARP, and everyone weighed in, and I think one of the most interesting answers we had was actually when Derek stated that he preferred LARP over tabletop, even though he is a heavy tabletop runner right now, and it's probably because the majority of us are tabletop players versus LARP. So, John, I'm going to ask you, as a heavy LARP storyteller, would you still put LARP above tabletop role-playing, or do you favor the tabletop?
Well, the thing I dislike with LARP, I guess, would be the insane amount of people that you can gain compared to a tabletop game. Because your average tabletop game is, 8 to 10 people at most, usually?
At most, yes.
Whereas a LARP, you're going to run 15 to 40.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So you can imagine having to put up... It's one thing to have to put up with a party of 8 as a storyteller or DM, or even as a player having to put up with 7 other people doing different things. But then you go to a LARP, and now you got to put up with 20, 30 other people that are going to do their own thing, and some of those may not even affect you either, So, but I don't know. That one's kind of difficult for me. I kind of like the tabletop because it's a smaller or closer game, but I like the LARP just as well because I get to interact with the bigger picture, as it were.
So, in other words, you're a fence sitter.
Yes.
Why am I not surprised? But that's okay. We smite fence sitters, so special guest hosts get 1 card.
Well, I'm pretty sure we didn't smite Tracy Hickman.
Well, Tracy Hickman didn't fence sit. He provided a third option. That's different.
True. That's true.
Well, maybe that's what he's doing.
Well, maybe.
Now, as a third option, though, I have done a LARP that was all we did was sit around the table, and that was our role play.
There you go.
We didn't really have to do any RPS. We still had the same character sheets that we have in the LARP. We still got up and interacted and talked as if we were characters. And it actually truly was a role-playing session. We didn't even have to draw out the rock, paper, scissors, and all that crap. I loved it. And it was a werewolf game, too.
Ooh.
Nice.
Well, we're actually hoping to implement something very similar to that in our upcoming games, to have our opening game a role-play session where we kind of define our characters. So I'm looking forward to that. Don, do you have some announcements for us?
Well, I do have a couple. The first one, as we announced on, I believe, our last episode, maybe even the episode before, we are doing a really fun contest in cooperation with Fear the Boot, Kicked in the Dice Bags, Players, and Masters Edition, and Postcards from the Dungeon. And I believe the contest is called Postcards from the Dungeon.
It is.
And what you do is you basically get a postcard and you write out a letter as if you were playing a character in a dungeon. All of our information for where you need to mail your postcards or email or whatever means you are going to be sending those is on our website, theestablishedfacts.com, and also, I believe, Postcards from the Dungeon and pretty much any of the other subsidiary podcasts that are incorporated in the contest. But the top 5 that are chosen will win a game of their choice
of reasonable
within
price.
reason. And then the top 1 out of those 5 will win additional games of their choice, three additional games of their choice. Again, within reason, obviously. But this is a really fun, really cool opportunity for us to do some cross-promotions with some other gamers and podcasts and things like that.
But the key is you will only hear if you've won
That's right.
via the podcasts.
That's right.
Which means you have to listen to each podcast.
At the end of October, they're going to be gathering up all the postcards. Postcards from Dungeon, I believe, is actually going to be receiving them and then distributing them amongst the 5 podcasts as evenly as they can. And then the 5 podcasts are going to be responsible for choosing their favorite, and then we will all subsequently send those 1 in to be voted on by listeners. But in order to find out whether or not you win, you have to listen to each one of the podcasts when they release their episode where they announce the winner and things like that. So definitely check those other podcasts out. Check out the contest rules and get your postcards in as soon as you can.
The deadline is October 31st, and international entries are welcome, but it's suggested that you get them either into FedEx or in soon so that they get to, well, not FedEx or UPS because it is going to a P.O. box.
Right.
So
You
get
have
it in
to
the mail
send it
soon.
by snail mail, USPS.
Or whoever your
Or, yeah.
postal service is in your country.
Yeah.
We do, I know, have a few people from Australia that have listened. So
Very cool. The next announcement is we are going to be starting a series similar to our Video Game Madness that we did in late February and March. where we're going to be pitting villains against one another. We're going to take 32 villains, and we're going to pit them one-on-one, and we're going to open up voting blocks just like we did for Video Game Madness, and then the winner of each round will move on to face another villain. The number one villain, the winner, which we timed it to be around the same time as the Super Bowl, which is really fun, but the winner of the Villainy Madness contest will face the winner of the Video Game Madness contest before we start our new wave of, I believe we're going to rename it
to
Heroes Madness in February and March again. So please, we need tons of suggestions. We're trying to get 64 that we can all vote on together to get the top 32. Right now we've got about 25 that we have all come up with, but we would love some inspiration from other people and things like that. And
we're trying to keep it as open as possible, but limiting it if we can to gaming references, preferably. Dungeons and Dragons books I know have been brought up, stuff like Takesis and her dragon army from the Dragonlance series to the evil deities of Lolth and Tiamat. Those could be brought up all the way to the Joker.
Yeah, anything that can be related back to some form of gaming. So if it's published in a novel and then got turned into a module, that counts. Mm-hmm. If it is a comic book villain and then got turned into a video game, that counts. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you have got any suggestions whatsoever, like I said, we've got a list of about 25 or 26 right now, and we're looking to try and get 64. So definitely. I think so far we've gotten one listener suggestion for the Joker, which I don't see why he won't get in.
Yeah,
but yeah, we have tons of room for more guys, and even if we get more than 64, that'll be awesome. We'll
girls,
vote on all of them.
Talia al Ghul, Corel DeVille, those types of things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, things like that. So,
Lolth is technically a woman. I mean, in all honesty,
true.
I mean, she is the
she's
demon
on my
spider
list.
queen. Yeah, she deserves
GLaDOS
it.
from Portal, she's on my list too.
Well, their voice is female, but I wouldn't necessarily call her female.
There was someone dressed up at Gen Con.
True,
GLaDOS,
there was.
and she was definitely female.
Alrighty then. Oh, with that being said, those of you in the other podcasts who missed Gen Con, I do apologize that you missed it, but we had a great time.
Yes,
if you
we
didn't
did.
hear.
And if you would like to see pictures or reminisce with us, we can tell you all of our gamer stories.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that'll be exciting.
And go to facebook.com/theestablished to see the pictures.
That's right. Derek, you had something?
Yes, actually, I do have one small announcement. This will be my third from ending podcast I'll be on for a while. I will be actually taking a hiatus from the Established Facts for 5 to 8 months, possibly. Mm-hmm. So
not because he will be in jail.
No, we did not kick him off the podcast.
That's right.
No. You don't go to jail if you don't admit to what you've done, or get caught.
Or you don't get caught.
And we did not emotionally break him. It's now someone else's job to do that.
Yes,
exactly.
We're handing off the torch.
Yes. So I will be going to basic training for the Army National Guard, starting in end of October, beginning of November, and then I'll be getting yelled at for 12 weeks, and then
voluntarily.
Yes.
Voluntarily. And then
sign up for this.
You know, Don, you and I voluntarily did that too. It's on our left ring finger.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that's true.
See, this is the dogs telling you
we
you're
got
being
married.
stupid.
Derek's going
that's
to the Army.
The dogs.
The only difference between our decision and his decision is he's getting paid.
That's true. Yeah. So, anyways, I will not be disappearing forever, just for several months, and I look forward to coming back for the Heroes tournament next year. So, There you go.
We will try not to destroy the podcast in your absence.
Derek, do you know yet whether you have time off for, like, Fear the Con and stuff like that in March? Or May? That's in May, isn't it? Yeah.
We're not
It's
even
in
sure
May. I don't know. It depends.
Okay.
Because I go for BCT in November, then advanced individual training, or otherwise known as cooking class for myself, for 8 weeks. And then possibly OCS to go to officer, to become an officer.
Sweet.
8 weeks after that. So, yeah, it's I'll be playing soldier for a while.
Okay.
But yeah, I do have weekends that I have to drill for the National Guard,
Right.
and then 2 weeks sometime in the year.
Okay.
So, and guess when August drill is?
Oh, that's right. During Gen Con.
during Gen Con.
Yeah,
You
so
still get to go one
this will
day.
be the first. Excuse me?
You still get to go one day, right?
Well, Thursday and Friday I get to go.
Okay.
I just have to be there for Saturday and Sunday.
So it's not
But-
it's not a complete loss.
And you might be able to...
No.
Oh, no, you wouldn't. Never mind. I was going to say, you might be able to be back Saturday night, but usually they have them stay on base.
Yeah,
so.
you stay on base because you
No.
do drill on Sunday.
We actually get to go off base in Indiana. Vermont, I have to actually stay over, but Indiana, I can.
So
go
Saturday
home.
night you could come back down there.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. I don't know
But
how...
then
I don't
you'd
know
have to
how...
be back on Sunday.
But yeah, but
Yeah, I have to be back on Sunday.
yeah, we all get together and play on Saturday night at Gen Con, remember?
No, because I was in the hotel room with a severe headache,
not my fault.
sleeping. I'm not saying it was. I'm just,
And yours truly was playing werewolf.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
we still all got together. Anyways.
That's true. All right, Don.
so, John Givens, please tell us a little bit about when your next game is, so that we can all try and be there, or at least have somebody check it out.
Our next LARP is this coming Saturday, the 15th, from 6 p.m. until midnight-ish. Usually, we try to end around midnight. Sometimes we go over.
And where do you play?
German Park on the south side. We're in the building that's owned by the Turners. So once in a while, there's an event in German Park, so people will stop you on the way in to ask what you're there for. So you would just tell them you're there for the event at Turners. The fee to rent the site is $7 per person. So, and that goes toward paying the site fee, and anything over the site fee then goes into props and such, ink, toner, and supplies for the game.
So John, when is, after the 15th, when is the following game? Because by the time this episode releases, it will be next Friday.
Right.
Which
so
will be like the 21st.
The
Yeah.
6th of October.
Okay, so the first weekend in October.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
We do first and third Saturday every month
There you go. And usually,
So what's the
usually from
third
6 to-
Saturday?
of October.
The 20th?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
October 20th? Yeah.
Yeah, 20th.
Okay.
All
So,
right. Okay, so on our last episode, I'm going to abbreviate our last episode's established fact.
you sure
but
you
on-
don't want the person who said it to say it?
Do you know Chata?
Yeah.
On our last episode, Debbie,
One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them, in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie.
I want that as a ringtone.
just from her reading
Just
it.
from her reading
well,
it.
you know. And this episode, we have established that vampire is a great way to cut your LARPer teeth.
Oh, great. I apologize to everybody who's listening.
Oh,
Goodness.
So awesome.
I love it.
I do too.
Okay.
All right. Night, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Established Facts. Please visit us at theestablishedfacts.blogspot.com. Also, visit us at our Facebook page, facebook.com/theestablishedfacts. To show us your support and buy some merchandise, go to cafepress.com/castingrobot.